Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. We're delighted you're with us today, and your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Jason is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Welcome, Rick.
Hey there. Good morning.
Hey.
Your email didn't work. It bounced. I'm going to have Julie try to send it to you forward, because sometimes my email is now being blocked by different servers.
Yeah,
really creepy.
That's a feature. That's a feature. That would be like, we find the same thing. People say, hey, I've called you. How come you don't answer your phone? And I'll say, well, because it didn't ring. Literally, people will say, well, I sent you an email.
My phone rings when I get telemarketing.
Yeah. Well,
I never get it, you know.
Do you have an answer for the telemarketers? Because I do.
I do, too. I just hang up. I don't even say a word. Once I hear what it is, I'm gone.
Well, I want to get off their list. And
that's not going to
well, first of all, here's what they do. They have a power dialer, a computer dialer. And it will ring. It will call about 6 or 10 numbers at a time. Boom. And whoever answers the first, that guy gets transferred to that guy sitting in the cubicle with his headset on, looking at his script, ready to read it. Okay? That's how it works. So if you are bright and early to answer your phone, you get the telemarketer first. But if you let it ring 3 or 4 or 5 times, somebody else might have answered one of those calls, one of those 6 to 10 calls first, and you won't get that guy. So that's one thing. If you're really quick to answer the phone, that's why you find that you get the telemarketers more than if you answer the phone less quickly. What I do, Rick, is I ask the guy's name or gal's name, but usually it's a guy. Almost always it's a guy. And if he says his name is Joe, I go, Joe, wow, when'd you get out? Excuse me? Joe, it's me. Vin, when'd you get out? Excuse me? Joe, murder one, you're out. This is awesome. We got to go to lunch. And what happens is that telemarketer is brand new on that job because they hate those jobs. That's like the job of last resort. Most people would rather get a government job or sell insurance than be a telemarketer. So they know that the boss is listening in because they're new. And the last thing they want the boss to find out is that they've been a murderer or, in prison for a real serious crime. So I always link me to them as a serious criminal. And I can't wait to meet him again because we were in the same cell block. Joe, cell block C. Come on, remember me? And you know what happens
You're a
next?
sick man.
You know what happens next?
Actually, a very ill person.
They hang up on me. Can you imagine that?
I'll bet they do, man.
And you know why? And they do 2 things. 1, they hang up, and 2, just before they hang up, they click that mouse that says, "Do not call this guy again," because they don't want themselves to be on the phone with me again, because I would say the same thing. Joe, it's me. Come on, Joe. Really? You don't remember? Yeah, you got to remember, Joe. Well, so they disconnect and they remove me from the call list. So it takes a couple minutes to do that, but it's really satisfying. And they're not used to that. They are not used to being told that remember me from cell block C. Anyway, that's a little bit of humor, and I guess maybe I have too much time sometimes, and that's maybe why I do that. But Rick, I'm angry. I'm angry at so many things.
Listen to you.
Well, I am. I'm looking
Why
at.
are you laughing and grinning then?
Well, I've okay. You know that I've gone John.
You like it. Mikey likes it.
You know I've gone John Galt, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm literally doing everything I can to drag my feet when the government demands something, the government corporation demands something from me. Like how many of what do I have so they can tax me? Well, the last time they sent me one of these forms, they wanted me to send it back in, and I really don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, so I faxed it in, and they called me. You know, how many tractors, how many cows, how many sheep, goats, horses, trucks, trailers, farm equipment, how many of each, serial numbers, weights, lengths, widths, all kinds of things they want to know, to put in their database. That's what government corporations do. They compile data. They enter data, they sort data, they compile data, then they use that data to get more money from you. Well, I hate it. And the part that says, I do solemnly swear or affirm that the foregoing list contains a true and correct statement of all tangible personal property made taxable by the laws of the state of Missouri, which I owned or which I had under my charge or management on the first day of January. I further solemnly swear or affirm that I have not sent or taken or caused to be sent out, taken out of the property out of the state to avoid taxation. So help me God. And it says sign here. There's no way I'm going to sign here and agree to that. So I cross that off. And I say, this is an estimate. I don't know the real number. Okay? But they sent it. I faxed that whole thing in after I, crossed off the part and initialed the part that I don't agree to. I did the same thing on my income tax return, by the way. And they called right back and they said, we can't accept that because their fax machine reduces the size of that page. And they can't then scan it into their automated machine. So Mrs. Finelli said, she said, did you still have a copy of that? And I said, oh, I just shredded it. So now I have to recreate it. Well, it's going to take me a long time to recreate all those things. And I don't know if they're going to be same numbers or not. I don't know. But, when I get to it, I'll get to it. I just hate this invasion, Rick. Are you getting the same kind of thing that I'm getting? Invaded by these
it's worse than it. I've noticed in my town that the police officers are not the same people anymore. They've had a rotation of lots of younger guys. They're writing tickets in town. This is state police now, not county or city. The state police are writing tickets for going 6 miles over the speed limit. If the speed limit is 35, if you're at 41 or 42 miles an hour, you're going to get a ticket. The whole thing is no longer about serving and protecting and trying to make a driving experience safe as much as it is money. And racking up how many points, how many tickets did you write, how many did I write? And the guy that writes the most tickets gets the motorcycle. That's what's happening in my town. How about yours?
Well, I wrote down a couple of things that I want to ask if I'm audited again, which actually I'm looking forward to, because I will be broadcasting all about the who, what, when, where, why, how, the names, all those things. But I'm afraid that I would start out that audit at the IRS's location or at the state's location with the following statement. Before we get started, are you a homosexual? Are you a pedophile? Do you cross-dress? Like Bruce Jenner does. Do you do any of those things? And I think that would put this guy off guard. And then the reason I would say, well, I need to know kind of a little bit about you, before we get started, because you're going to ask me a lot of personal questions, I assume. So I just need to know, kind of what you're like.
Oh, man. Yeah. Off balance.
Then I would go on to say, because I've got a list. I got a list of
is that called
these
a
questions.
spitball?
Next question.
I remember the spitball.
Well, yeah. Well, here's one. Right after those, do you cross dress like Bruce Jenner does, wear high heels and things? Have you ever committed a crime? Have you ever lied? Now, because those things are important to me, because, you know, if you're asking me questions as an IRS auditor or a state auditor about finances and things like that, and if you've lied, then I don't know if I can trust you. I guess I might need to have another auditor, different auditor. Yeah. And by the way, my tax returns now say that there's a fee to talk to me. You know, I've complied for free so far, but anything after that, there's a fee for my time. And it says that. It says if you need additional information, it's $100 per hour with an 8-hour minimum.
Yeah,
so if they call me or they send me,
if it goes beyond a certain, yeah.
Well, you know, I'll tell you why. It takes months for us to prepare our taxes. All year long, we accumulate these records. We have to store them. I would prefer not to do all that. And then they want us to be able to prove everything that we've got. So we have to have every iota of information categorized the way they want it categorized. I'll tell you what, if I started a broadcast on Monday and just read the IRS rules and regulations, just read them out loud on the air, it would take probably 3 months. Take 3 months to cover the information and the rules and regulations and calculations and columns and sorting and dividing, adding, subtracting, all that they want me to go through. And that's why people don't do their own taxes, because they feel intimidated. So when I get audited, I'm going to turn it into a class. I'm going to ask this auditor, you'll have to explain this to me, because, you know, I tried to figure this out, and, you know, I've gone to school and I've learned things like adding, subtracting, and multiplying, dividing, but this is really complicated. And each year you guys change this stuff. So it's really difficult for me to learn. But since I'm here, I'm at your disposal. Please teach me, and my wife, and my children, and I brought some guests with me because we're all interested in how this works. So please teach us right here, right now, how this works. So maybe we can save you some time next year.
You know, one of my best friends is an IRS auditor. And believe it or not, and he hates his job. I mean, he really is. I'm concerned about him. He's a really nice man.
I thought I was your best friend. I thought I was your best friend.
Well, you are my best friend. Just on the other hand.
We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Just since we took this short detour, I wanted to, before we get into physics and science and weather and some more serious things, I just want to let you know that if you are audited, if you get stopped by a public servant like a cop or an IRS auditor or a state auditor, you can bring with you what's called a public servants questionnaire, referring to the Privacy Act of 1974. And it's a form. It's a really neat form, and you can print this out. Just do a search on your favorite search engine, which should not be Google, by the way. You might want to start with DuckDuckGo, DuckDuckGo.com, and make that as your default search engine or start page. You know, pick one of those. But this form says, you know, it looks like an official form, and it is. It says public servant full name, ID number, and there's a box where they can check refused, driver's license, a box where they can check refused, badge number, they can check refused, their residence, you know, the street, city, state, zip. It goes on to say their office, mail address, their employing agency or department, their supervisor's name. Will the public servant uphold the Constitution of the United States of America? Yes or no. Will the public servant furnish a copy of the law or regulation which authorizes this investigation? Yes or no. Will the public servant read aloud that portion of the law authorizing the questions public servant will ask? Yes or no. What prerogative does a citizen have in giving answers to public servants' questions? Voluntary or mandatory? Check the box. Goes on and on and on. What are you going to do with this information? Who's going to use it? You might want to have one of these in your glove compartment. You might want to have these near your front door or wherever you happen to answer the door, and you might want to have those in one of those, with you. If you get audited, I'm certainly going to do that because I've gone John Galt. I am not going to feed the engine. I am going to drag my feet when it comes to these demands. I am going to gum up the works whenever and wherever I can regarding the invasion of privacy. When I go to stores and they want more and more information, I'm going to try to provide it as best I can, but it might take me a couple days. And I'm not concerned about the people behind me in the line at the cashier. I'm not causing these problems. I'm just trying to help this cashier with whatever they want to know. But it's going to take me a long time. And the more they pressure me, the more confused I'm going to get. That's just the way it's going to be, Rick. So that's going John Galt. Any comments before we get into some physics?
You're lucky that that's all you have to deal with. I don't even have to deal with them at all. My incomes are so pitiful. All I have is Social Security. You've got Ferraris in your garage. You've got cows in your field. You've got dry grass turning into more worries. I like my life simple.
Well, that's a little exaggeration, Rich. Rick, we don't have Ferraris in the garage.
I'm
one
kidding,
Ferrari.
I'm kidding. I wish I have a 280Z in the garage.
Well, I'm sure your 280Z can outrun our Ferrari. I'm certain of it.
No, man.
Because our Ferrari has been stuck in. Yeah. Well, I know. Can yours go over 55?
I had this is interesting.
Our Ferrari stuck.
The top end on an automobile is the brake horsepower to cross-sectional frontal area of the car. That is like a boat, that you can only go so fast because of the bow line and the length of the boat. That determines the speed because of drag. And I wanted to know what my 280Z would actually do. And I took it up to Pacific Raceways up in Puyallup, and I opened her up. I've never done it before. I was afraid I was going to blow cylinders, the whole thing. I opened it up to what it would do. And guess what? The 280Z in 1976 was rated at 147 miles an hour, and they clocked me at 167 miles an hour confirmed. And the cool part was, as I got up past 110 miles an hour, my car started gripping the ground. The actual spoiler worked.
Well, I got to tell you, that'll blow the doors off that Ferrari because we have a 1980 Ferrari. And it's stuck in first gear. It only goes 55 miles an hour. And if you got to back up, you got to have somebody stepping on the clutch. That Ferrari's, what a piece of junk. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, class. Just a quick update. Robert Stewart's going to be with us tomorrow at 9. Lee Wickenhauser at 10. Lee and I are going to be talking about cars and these failures that we are seeing with cars, and we're going to tell you why we believe these car parts are failing at record rates. Catastrophic failures, big, deep, expensive failures on American and other vehicles. I think you're going to be quite surprised, but you'll be glad to know that you can find the answer as to why this is happening right here at USA Prepares. Rick, Winter Storm Ulmer. 95-mile-an-hour winds in Amarillo, Texas. Colorado Springs, 97 miles an hour. 11,000 vehicles were stranded on the interstate. 100,000 in Denver without electricity. 500 miles of Interstate 80 closed from Wyoming to Nebraska. Unbelievable weather we're having.
Yeah, there's some reasons this is happening, and I'm surprised we haven't had a day after tomorrow yet.
I am too. Class, we're laying in supplies here as if we are going to have a day after tomorrow. We're trying to get the things we need to survive, including lime, a lot of lime for our fields. We're taking care of that. We're expecting that it's going to get worse, not better. I got a call from our dear friend Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.org, and he and I talked at length yesterday, and he's a brilliant man, absolutely brilliant, USA preparedness instructor. The problem that Dane and I have is our schedules just don't line up, and we're trying to find a day that works for both of us to have him come back on the air, and I think we can do it. I have to shift a few things, but I think we can do it soon. And he told me that he is extremely concerned, and I'd like you to hear it from his own words, but he told me he's extremely concerned about these dramatic shifts in the weather, the U-turning of these high winds, the kinds of experiences that we're having on our farm. And here's what I said, and Rick, you and I have talked about this. Let's just maybe talk about it in a little more detail. I mentioned to him that a couple of years ago, we've noticed that when we have rain, that the creeks, the wet weather creeks, now, class of wet weather creek is a depression that the water flows down to and travels to a lower area. So it's dry until it rains. Then when you have rain, the water collects there and goes downhill. So we have these creeks that aren't flowing all the time. But when it rains, they flow, and when it stops raining, they cease flowing. We notice that they foam. There's like detergent in the water, bubbles, not a little bit of bubbles. It's like washing machine water being poured into the stream at vast quantities. And so I tried to trace this to where's it coming from. Now, there's no deposits. Our farm is half woods and half open fields, meaning half grass. No one has deposited a mountain of detergent on our farm. We don't put chemicals on our farm. We don't do it. We don't fertilize. We don't apply pesticides. We don't do that stuff. We have an organic farm. Well, our farm has these bubbles in the wet water creeks and streams. So I got in the truck and I drove around. So does everybody else. And they don't have mountains of detergent on their property that's leaching into the water either. So where's it coming from? It has to be coming from above or below. I don't think below is a good answer. I think above is the answer. Well, I mentioned this to Dane Wigington yesterday. He said it's a surfactant. They have determined for sure that it is a surfactant that they are spraying on us I'm looking at the bars on this Comrex Bricklink screen, and it shows me that we had an outage. Isn't that interesting? Just when I'm talking about what these guys are doing. A couple seconds. It's surfactants as well as other chemicals and elements and materials and biologicals that they're spraying on us. And that's where the bubbles are coming from. So it's not just us. They're not just targeting the Finelli farm.
Yeah, the surfactant is to take the crap that they are putting in the atmosphere and thin it out using water. What it does is it breaks down the water into smaller molecules so that the product is more easily dispersed. That's what a surfactant does.
So, all right. So here we are, class. We have these chemicals, the biologicals, and the surfactants, and we look at this and we go, "Gosh, it looks. Thank God it stopped raining. These bubbles are going to stop dissipate." Well, they're going into the ground. These chemicals, these surfactants, are going into the ground, ultimately into the groundwater for your drinking
and into
pleasure.
Your body water, and into a lot of different things. The plants, the animals.
So if you've got a garden as we do, it's going to rain on the garden. Oh, well, what you can do is build a greenhouse. Now, how much is a greenhouse? That's going to cost you thousands of dollars. Unless you build a plastic one that you replace the plastic every couple of years. A big hoop house that you call a greenhouse. Okay, you can do that. And then you get to water your garden. And what are you going to water your garden with? Water that you capture off of your roof, which has all those chemicals in it as well? Or are you going to use groundwater that's ultimately going to be polluted with the same chemicals? I don't understand how this is going to work other than kill us. So then here's the question. I wrote this down, Rick. And some people are going to think very poorly of me when I ask this question. So here's the question for our class. So you look up and you see these chemtrails in the sky. These airplanes poisoning our skies. And then you see some, we'll call them missiles, going up toward those airplanes. So you see the airplanes spraying the skies, and then you see some missiles being launched from the ground toward those airplanes. Who are you going to vote for? Who are you going to vote for? I'm not going to say, because they'll come and arrest me. But it's really clear to me who I want to win. And I mentioned to Dane Wigington yesterday, I said, Dane, I said on the air, there's one way we can stop this. So the pilots who, let's say they have a wife, let's assume male pilots for now. So they're flying around and the wife says, hey, listen, honey, you're out there flying and you won't tell me what you're doing. You say it's classified and you can't tell me. Well, I've learned about these chemtrails and you're up there flying around. Now, if you're flying in one of those planes and you're poisoning the planet, you're going to create a defective child. Because we want to have a family, don't we, honey? So if you think that I'm up for creating a defective child, that we're going to have a lifelong series of unending problems from you going up there and flying around and inhaling the chemicals that are sprayed by the guy in front of you, the plane in front of you, it's not going to happen. So here's what we're going to do. Until you quit doing that, you sleep on the couch. Period. End of story. I mentioned that to Dane. He thought that was pretty neat. I also mentioned to him that maybe we could appeal to Barron Trump, Donald Trump's son, and explain to him what's happening, and maybe he could go to his dad and say, Dad, I think we got to stop this. Dane absolutely stunned me when he said that they have communicated this information about the chemical spraying of our skies to the Trump administration, and it's gone nowhere except increased. He said with each regime, well, he didn't use the word regime. He used the word administration. He was much more polite than I am. He said with each administration, it's gotten worse. We can't fix this. Jeez. I mentioned that, and here we go again with, wow. See, class, I have these red bars that show up on a screen, and it tells me when we have dropouts. It's only been when I've been talking about this that we have dropouts. Very interesting. So, according to what Dane has learned, Dane Wigington, the Trump administration knows about the concerns that we have about these chemical sprays in the skies. And everybody's sick. And it's gotten worse, not better. So it doesn't look like the Trump administration is going to fix it anytime soon. Rick, any comments?
Not at this time. I'm very concerned with why they're doing it. Is this happening in the Soviet Union? Russia? Is this happening in Russia? Because it's a UN project over Oregon. We've already vetted the aircraft out of Chilliwack and Klamath Falls. But we know that it's a UN project. To what end? Is it weather modification? Yeah, probably. What else? I don't know. I can tell you that.
Okay, weather modification.
What's that?
Okay, that's what Dane and I talked about that. Now, Dane is well over 1,000 miles from us. And he lives in a wildlife reserve. And he and I were talking about the trees. And in his neck of the woods and our neck of the woods, the same exact thing is happening to the trees. We have trees. I'm looking out the studio window. We're surrounded by woods. And there are many trees that have, most of the trees have branches with no leaves on them. I'm talking about deciduous trees. No leaves at all. But there's some trees that the leaves have refused to fall. They are brown, the leaves are dead, and they are glued on. And 60, 70 mile an hour winds have not blown them off. Same thing is happening to Dane's area. We'll be right back. So, Rick, just to recap, we've had, about a week ago, we had 10-degree weather. We had rain, hail, snow, freezing weather, 60, 70 mile an hour winds, and the leaves are still, dead leaves are still stuck on some of these trees. Not all of them, but some of them. But most of the trees have no leaves whatsoever, which would be normal. So Dane lives in California. He said the same thing is happening there. Joey lives in Michigan. He's on the northern part of the country. Same thing is happening there. I'm in Missouri, in the center of the country. Same thing is happening here. So I just wanted to share that this is what's happening. These dead leaves are like glued onto the trees, and they're not coming off. And I've never seen this before. In my entire life, I've never seen this before.
Well, there is no question there's weather changes occurring right now. Is it global warming or global cooling? The correct answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a time and place where there are going to be some massive changes. I'm going to send you a link on Skype. I sent it to you on email. It bounced. Has your account been suspended? It says something weird. I sent it to.
Yep.
What's going on?
I'm just trying to decide. Well, I'm trying to decide what I want to do, and I'm really serious about this.
When you grow up.
Well, if I grow up.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
No, seriously, Rick. I feel that we all contribute so much of our time to this broadcast, and so few people are actually doing things to help themselves. And I'm so disgusted with so many of the millennials, not all of them, but so many of them. And I'm wondering, why am I doing this? And I'm starting to speak out more
I have something to say about that. Yeah, I got it. I went 2 weeks ago. I went to the Josephine County Sheriff's Office, the city police, and the county police, search and rescue, county extension, and said I'm prepared to offer free workshops. If they wanted to sponsor and put those on, I would show up and do them for free in memory of Matt Stein. And do you want to know something? I have not received a single callback. That's me.
Well, okay.
That's me.
Okay.
You know what? Oh, man, I cannot believe it. It's unbelievable. And worse, they don't actually care that people aren't ready. It's not even about that. They don't care.
Why would they care? Rick, you came to one of our real large expos in Springfield, Missouri. And I met with the emergency management department. I met with all the departments that you've talked to, the Civil Air Patrol, the Red Cross, the National Guard, the Missouri National Guard. I met with most of the churches. I sent free coupons for all teachers, students, and their spouses to all the public schools. I invited all teachers and their spouses and their children to come to the expo for free. I even said anyone who needs a scholarship, if you can't afford the $5 to come to the expo, I will pay your way in. And you don't have to prove anything. All you have to say is, may I have a scholarship? And I've advised everyone at the front table, that anyone who wants a scholarship gets
All
one
right.
for free.
Well, here's the one I want to talk about at the turn of the hour. I just
Hold on
posted
one
this.
second.
Putin scientists predict mega
We'll talk about that in
U.S.
just a second.
earthquake in 2 weeks. And
Let's talk about
nobody
that right
is
after
talking about this.
Well, we are. We're going to right after top of the hour. Rick, no teacher, no public school teacher came to the expo. And the guy that was in charge of emergency management was on TV making fun of us, saying, well, if they want to have a flashlight and some batteries and a little bit of water, that'd be okay. That's the government corporation's position on preparedness. They don't want us to be prepared. And I got to tell you, if they want help from me when things go south, they're not getting it. No help to the government corporations. None. Because they've been in our way every step of the way. Lying to people. Telling people, you don't need to prepare. We'll talk about the earthquake that Putin says is coming right after the top of the hour. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Quick comment. President Donald Trump wants a border security wall on our southern border. How about an overhead security wall? Let's stop the terrorists who are spraying our skies from overhead and killing us. We have mismanaged our planet. It's got to stop now. Rick, I know you want to talk about the earthquake, but I just want to finish up one little piece. I mentioned to Dane Wigington that our cows are slipping. They're slipping and falling, and they're hurting themselves, and we've lost 3 cows so far. 3 cows that have slipped and fallen because what these surfactants are making the mud so slippery that the cows can't walk without falling. They are breaking their hips, and they are dying. And we've lost 3 recently.
You might have a class action suit available with surfactant and how it's affected you personally on your farmland. You might have a class action suit to start something. I would think it would be a tragedy if you gave up having our USA Prepare Meats radio. I think that somebody needs to do it, and here's Vincent. I think is wonderful. You're perfect, and
I'm furious. I'm livid. Well, I'll tell you what. We have been ringing the alarm for 8 years now, and the amount of people who have joined the bandwagon are too few. And I look at what's happening. Facebook is not in our favor. Google has suppressed our views. Not only our views, but others. Dane Wigington's too. You could do. Dane Wigington was telling me that you can do a search on some of his information, and it's hard to find. It's hard to find. And what they do is then they have other searchers show up saying that his information is it's just contrails. It's not contrails. It's chemtrails. The difference is obvious. We are being lied to, and these big media companies are giving the wrong answers, and they are suppressing us. And I've decided to go Galt. That's why I've gone John Galt.
This political thing that's going on now with Trump and this Ortega woman, where she's an exact reflection of him, where he's old, she's young, he's conservative, she's liberal, da-da-da. She is, in my opinion, what is wrong with politics when she said, I can't believe it, man, that we've got to change our daylight savings time thing because more sun is going to heat up the planet.
You know what they
what is wrong with these people, and how did they get into office being that stupid? It's crazy.
Well, if you think she's stupid, imagine the people who voted for her.
Trump has got a terrible personality. He's everything I don't want to be as a businessman. And yet, I'm grateful that somehow they didn't end run around Hillary Clinton. Good gosh. Oh, my goodness. Could you imagine where we would be right now if she had been? She's not even probably alive. I mean, you know, who knows what they're doing? I've been reading some very strange things about her and her proclivities for zombieism. Creepy. And you know what? They've been in history because I have studied the occult. In fact, I don't know anybody I know people that know more than I do in certain areas. That's given. But I am a scholar in that area, and I can tell you there are some creepy belief systems out there that scare the bejesus out of me. I'm not kidding. I'm crazy. Drinking blood, using baby's blood for transfusions for immortality.
Oh yeah.
Oh no. That there's validation. There's drugs in baby's blood that does not occur in teenage blood called adrenocortisone, and it is a high more than even cocaine when you crack it. And I can tell you that you get some wealthy people on that kind of a drug program. And now, you know, with blood transfusions and what do they call that vitamin C thing that they're doing? Yeah, listen, I don't even want to go there. And now
let's talk about the earthquake. Let's talk about what you have on your.
So
go ahead.
There have been through history numerous attempts. In the 70s when I worked for the military, we were working with cosmobiology trying to predict earthquakes. And it turns out there is a 3 sigma. I did the computer studies on that. When the planet Uranus and the Earth and the Sun are in a specific geometric alignment, Uranus, there's a 3 sigma error coefficient, a 99.9975% probability of an event, major event. And Putin scientists have been working on this, and they came out on the 6th, March 6th, and it was published in numerous things, Russia Today, others, have predicted a mega U.S. earthquake in 2 weeks. And that means on March 20th. Now, I don't know if this is going to happen, but I can tell you that 9.0 is most likely going to set off Yellowstone. 9.0 is going to take out the New Madrid fault line. And that's what they're predicting right now, March 20th. And this is Russian scientists. Now, that doesn't mean it's true. And we started talking about solar minimums and how the sun does this and how the sun does that, trying to relate it, like Wigington and others. What is it? What's that guy that does solar predictions? Suspicious observers. There is a group of people trying to figure out how to predict these things, and the Russians are now saying the U.S. is going to have a major event shortly this week, and nobody is really prepared. And the 2 primary things that kill people during events like this or New Orleans is exhaustion and dehydration. Those are the first 2 things that happen before anything else happens. The measles in an airport, get a grip. I remember my mother seeking somebody that had measles to expose me so that I had them and built up my immunity rather than going in and quickly getting a shot to make sure I got sick. That's crazy. What is going on today in medicine and law enforcement and politics, everything is broken. And the massive medias are side hedging it. They'll talk about it to some extent, but they're not telling you what's really going on. And even then, who knows what's really going on? By the way, Grace Thorne is visiting me. Thank you, Linda, for the birthday remembrances. I'll be sending you a note. Thank you, Joey. I've got a long list of people I would like to thank because the kinds of support I'm getting now is actually really wonderful. And we need to band together because the day after tomorrow is about to happen. And when it does, it's going to be your neighbor that saves your life.
Well, let's thank a few right now. Grace, thank you very much. I received a package from you with some photographs with Rick and Matt Stein and Ed in Florida. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Isn't it terrible what happened to Matt? Man, I can't believe it. I can't believe what happened to Matt Stein. I'm sorry.
Matt Stein was class. Let me reach over. I'll have to leave the microphone to grab these pictures. They're just out of arm's reach on the studio. But
Grace, not to let you hear me cry. It's terrible.
Grace took some wonderful pictures around our kitchen table.
Oh, and, those pictures, yeah.
Aaron Dakins was there. Let's see.
Rich Shealy.
Rich Shealy was there. You were there, Matt. So many of us were there, and John Statmiller. And we're all laughing, having a great time. And Grace sent me those pictures, and it was a wonderful remembrance. But I have to tell you, class, if you looked at us, you would say, Matt was eating his fruits and nuts, and he was if you had to pick someone who was the most healthy around that table, you'd have to say, well, the guy from California, the guy who was eating the fruits and nuts and all the time. That guy who would pour out of his, he brought his own breakfast rations with him, and it was, all health food stuff. That's all it was. You'd have to say that Matt was the healthiest of us all, and he was a little younger, and he ran and climbed and did all kinds of outdoor kinds of things. He was really healthy, and unfortunately, he passed away first. Very, very sad. I'm talking about USA Preparedness Instructor Engineer Matt Stein. He wrote the article 400 Chernobyls, and that's what we're talking about here. If this 9.0 earthquake actually happens in a few short days, we're looking at what's going to happen to the reactors. So, Rick, I'm looking at these pictures that Grace Thorne sent, and a lot of us are sitting around the table. Matt, let's see, let me get the right picture here. Okay, so we've got you laughing hysterically, Matt Stein's laughing hysterically, Grace Thorne's there, John Statmiller, Rich Scheben, we're all laughing hysterically. Ed in Florida, Aaron Dakins. It was a great time. It really was a great time, and I don't know what who said, but sometimes it seemed like some of the jokes that we were telling kind of picked on Matt Stein a little bit, because there's one picture with everybody's laughing but Matt.
Yeah.
And then I have another picture that Grace sent me. On the back of it, it says, "Watch it, Pilgrim. I'm locked and loaded." And there is you with a shotgun, a pump shotgun. Do you remember that picture?
Yeah, that's my Marlin. It's an 1897 powder, black powder, single load.
Okay.
Well,
it looked like about that vintage. I really couldn't tell exactly from the picture, shotgun.
But
yeah. So Grace, thank you so much. I need to thank a few people. There are some people who have commented on some of the things we've been saying on the internet. And they have, some of them have aliases. One of them is known as Wild Woman. Wild Woman, thank you very much. Lena Ducher, thank you very much. William Bartell, thank you very much. Algo Rhythm, thank you very much. And these are people who have kind of stood up to the trolls, these disgusting trolls who pick on us. I really appreciate their comments, their positive comments that the people whom I've just mentioned have made. So, Rick, before we take calls, let's make sure that we cover Putin's scientist prediction. Is there anything else that we need to say about this mega earthquake?
The problem, he's saying the New Madrid fault line is going to be affected.
That's a big problem
you
for
have
many.
21 Daiichi-like GE reactors on that fault line, all of them leaking. And if the grid goes down, how are you going to cool them? And what happens next?
Right.
Well, I'd be right on that, like stink on jet. You have to be, aware that as it is right now, you guys are in serious risk. That's why Oregon, we have no nuclear reactors anymore. The only one active right now is in Hanford, and guess what? There it is, leaking in the Columbia River. There's one down in California also. And if we have any kind of an event where their power is cut off, how do they cool them?
You mentioned the Hanford reactor. Well, at the Hanford Reservation, the area where the Manhattan Project was working on the atomic weapons to be used against Japan to end World War II. There have been radioactive leaks since the 40s, continuously spreading outward from the reservation to the Columbia River. And what's happening is, and has happened for decades, since the 40s, is the wildlife, the rodents, the rats, the mice,
I did a research on the U.S. Ronald Reagan when it went in to Fukushima to help the affected people with the tsunami that hit them. And there were a large list of enlisted men that died from radiation poisoning. And that ship was not allowed to dock anywhere except in one base in the Philippines because it glowed in the dark. And now there are people dying on that ship from unknown causes that they call it sepsis. And I have to tell you, they should have decommissioned that ship when it got exposed and sunk it somewhere in the ocean. And it's like all the other ships, toxic.
Well, what you're talking about is we went out there for some unknown reason, maybe to monitor radiation, and our guys were outside the ship and they were irradiated. You were absolutely right.
Well, they were there to help the people who got hurt.
Allegedly. But we didn't do that, did we? Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Mark in Illinois, welcome. You're on with Doc Ram.
Hey, good morning. I wanted to look up this date. It's November 1st, 1755. In 1755, on November 1st, there was a great earthquake that centered out of Lisbon, Portugal. It was felt throughout Spain, France, Italy, Austria, Turkey, Africa, throughout Scotland, and through America. It covered 4 million square miles, and it was a great earthquake in 1755. Are you familiar with that?
Doc Ram, are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, well,
okay.
There was the Carrington, 1850. There was, during that period, the Carrington effect that...
this was 17. This was 17.
Oh, 17, yeah. No. I'm not even familiar with that at all, no. But everything happens in cycles, and you can count on that. And anything that's possible is probable.
Let me give you another date. If you look at that's November 1st, 1755. If you look at May 19th, 1780, the sun was dark. The sun was darkened that day. It did not shine for the whole day. It was darkened in the sky, and the moon turned blood red. And that's recorded in history on May 19th, 1780.
Yeah, there weren't very many people in America at that time. It was mostly American Indian and so on, in the Midwest and so on. So I don't know how they would have recorded that kind of thing. There were Acadians that had come down out of
the
Canada.
Welsh were here. The Welsh were here. The Welsh people have been in America for almost 4 millennium, and they were actually American Indians too. They were white. See, the Native American Indians fought the not Asian American Indians, but the American Indians.
You know that it has been proven now, beyond a doubt, that Cleopatra actually went down the Mississippi River and the Colorado. And there are artifacts on the Colorado River right now that I have personally witnessed that absolutely validate that she was down the Colorado looking for copper.
Oh, Jeremiah the prophet was here. That's back 2,500 years ago. But but what I'm saying is that the Hebrew Indians, which were the Welsh, they were the American Indians, which are not from Asia but are from the Middle East. They were fighting the white Indians, which were the Hebrew Indians, and they almost killed off almost all of the Hebrew Indians, but some of us survived.
Most people don't realize I had the great fortune of teaching at Shiprock, New Mexico, the Navajo College, and they have stelas and reliefs showing American Indians being hunted by giants as cannibals and Nephilim. And so there's a lot of things that I don't understand that have importance today and what we do and why. And our history books aren't going to just display any of that. And so that's why I'm so big on, looking at your gut and, finding the truth within yourself. Like when you hear something and it resonates, that's important.
Well, I got another date for you. There was a star shower on November 12th of 1833, and it lasted for 9 hours. It was the biggest star shower that was recorded. And it came from the constellation Leo.
Oh. Well,
repeat
right
that date
now,
one more time, Mark?
I don't know how the scientists have actually come up with this, but I'm going to suggest that even if it's semi-remotely true, that you people in the Midwest prep up with at least water. Even if nothing else, you've got your water covered so that, because if those reactors go ballistic, I mean, nothing's going to be safe there in terms of drinkability. Your groundwater will be toxic.
Rick?
Well,
Okay,
I got
Rick,
a question
if
for you,
this
too.
happens, wait, hold on, Mark, just a second.
Okay.
If we have this massive earthquake, if nuclear reactors melt down, do you recommend that people go immediately into their basements so they are not in line of sight for these radioactive particles?
You're going to have a problem with everything at that point. The dust in the air, the wind moving that dust, all of it. You're going to have to pay attention. Yeah, it's going to, and it's like in the movies. What was that movie that you were watching that was about the future where they're watching nuclear weapons going off all around them and then they have to hunker down by going underground for a few minutes and then they come back up?
Jericho.
Jericho. Yeah. That is
Jericho.
play. That is a writer's interpretation of a what-if scenario taken to its logical conclusions. And even still, it will be the winds and related things that are going to, it's going to affect everything. And your weather, everything is going to be affected.
Yeah, and the cows are going to be outside, and our food supply is going to be outside.
Well, then the cows
or wheat,
the cows
or
are
rice,
going to die
or
right
rye.
out.
And there's nothing we're going to be able to do to protect them.
You could put them in a barn, and that might help. It will be in the air that you're breathing.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need a mask.
So do you think that people should...
about particulate like chemtrails in nanometer, there isn't a mask that's made that will filter that.
I had one more question for you. I wanted to know if you were familiar with Chernobyl, because it was a scalar energetics weapons platform. It was a nuclear reactor that the Russians used the scalar energetics technology to launch their attacks against other nations. And somebody hit it. I really not sure who did it. I think I know, but the Russian reactor, the grid behind the reactor, capacitor grid, was fried, and it caused the reactor to go into meltdown. But I think Fukushima was the same kind of reactor. I think it was a weapons-grade platform for launching scalar energetics.
I don't know about that part. What I do know is that if you don't have water to cool that reactor and you don't shut it down, even still there's going to be problems. And the coolant is run by electricity. And if the grid goes down,
Mark,
there's no way to cool those reactors, and they'll go critical, and that's that. And if they explode,
except for
now
generators,
you've got a problem with your atmosphere, not just the water and the groundwater.
Except for the diesel backup generators to run the cooling system, but they only have between 14 days and 30 days worth of fuel at those locations. Some may have even just 7 days worth of diesel fuel as a backup for those nuclear reactors. And if the grid goes down, how do you get backup generator fuel, diesel fuel, to those reactors with the grid down, the internet down, the communication system down, the refineries down, everything down? How do you cool those reactors, of which there are about 104? The answer is with great difficulty. And according to Matt Stein, it takes about a year to bring down a nuclear reactor completely down. You can slow it down, but you can't bring it down completely for less time than 1 year, according to...
That's why you need to turn those switches off now.
Right.
And that would be the politics of the Midwest right now. And I would think that would be a valid platform for a political movement. Shut it, turning the switch off now.
What was it you said, Vincent?
Mark, you said something that I've never heard anyone mention on the air, and I have not mentioned it either, but I'm going to do it right now. You mentioned Chernobyl. You mentioned the Chernobyl meltdown. Do you have information that is reliable as to exactly what happened to Chernobyl that caused it to melt down? Because you said something that I have a little bit of information about, and I will release it after you do. Do you have any information about that?
Yeah, I do. Actually, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Bearden, that I have talked to on the phone many times back in the past, but as when I was prophesying and traveling across the country, but the events that were going to happen before they happened. But actually, he wrote in a book, in one of his books called concerning the Soviet-Russian scalar energetics, and he actually connected the dots with, I believe, intelligence that this definitely happened, And nobody has told me that Fukushima was a weapons platform, but I believe the Japanese were working on the same technology.
Okay.
Well, they're not supposed to be doing that by law and treaty, but yeah, maybe. Scalar physics, and I know Tom, or did before he died, and I basically worked with him in the 70s. His concept has to do with resonant cavity oscillators, and scalars are how you transfer information from one subset of systems into lesser subsets. And that's what scalar means.
Or frequency.
Yeah, but, well, it's resonant. Not frequency, it's resonant. Yeah. Bandwidth.
Okay, well, let me tell you very quickly. The information that I learned is that we did it. We backfed a frequency that caused the reactor to fail and melt down. We did it. That's what I've learned, but I can't prove it. I cannot prove it. It's just, wow. More interruptions. Somebody's listening, because no matter when we talk about something important, bang. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Rick, how would you like our class to learn more about you?
But what do you mean? You mean my books and things like that?
Yeah.
My website. I'm in the middle of a battle with Amazon, and I don't know what's going to happen. I probably will never, ever have closure. But if you want a book from me, if you go to my website, richardallenmiller.com, it goes out personally with my hand, and I autograph everything. And I have sales.
richardallenmiller.com.
richardallenmiller.com.
Richard, Miller.com. Rick, very quickly, just to recap, the information that I've learned is that we backfed current to the Chernobyl reactor that caused that with a resonant frequency that caused the reactor to fail, overheat, and melt down. Does that correlate with what you've learned?
Yeah.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
Sure.
If you read the Debriefing on Soviet Scalar Energetic Weapons, written by Tom Bearden, it's a book. I think it was first. It was a briefing to the congressional hearing in the 1980s during the Reagan administration. He alluded in his book that it was the deep state, Israel, that fired the weapons from the Dimuna power plant in Palestine at the Russians.
Okay, so are you tending to agree with what I just mentioned?
Well, yeah, because that would be us, right? Yeah, but I mean, the U.S. and the United States. I mean, the Israel, Palestine, and the United States, and so, that's what he alluded in his that it was the Israeli government that fired the weapons that took out Chernobyl.
And when you say weapons, you don't mean rockets and military flyovers. You're talking about technical weapons. Is that correct? Like resonant frequencies. Yes? No? Did we lose you, Mark?
No, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had an interruption there. If you can get the book, Debriefing on Soviet Scalar Energetic Weapons by Tom Bearden, he does allude that, he doesn't come right out and say it, but I had talked to him personally when he was alive. Last time I talked to him was back in 2007. But he alluded that Palestine, Israel, deep state was the ones who had been working on scalar energetic weapons even for a long time during the time of the Russians as well. And there was an exchange, and that was Chernobyl.
Okay. I've got a couple quick questions for Rick. Rick, remote technical viewing, have you had any experience with that?
That's newer. We did astral projection, and remote viewing is later in the 80s with Targ and Puthoff. They will claim that they were in the 70s. It's not true. It didn't happen. I didn't even hear of remote viewing until the early 1983 at Stanford Research Institute. It was developed. It's a type of astral projection, and they will use or enhance drugs. There's some dangers with that because Alex Kavarainen, a good physicist from Finland, that does all the, or did all, he's dead now, did all the calculations on structured water for Pollock and others, actually published so much paper saying the danger of remote viewing.
One quick comment: parents in California are outraged because there's a California elementary school where 4 students have had cancer in less than 3 years. The parents want the tower removed, and the school won't do it because they get $2,000 a month kickback from the telephone company. And I'll put that on the website when I put the website back up. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, thank you so much for being with us today.